Tonight we focused on the upcoming holiday of Shavuos, going through the practical how-tos, what are the unique and special components of this holiday, and what's the spiritual dimension? How do we receive the Torah? What are the prerequisites? And how should I relate to Torah? What is the specialness of Torah? That it's such an unbelievable thing that I'm getting it one more time. So as I was talking with Miriam while we were waiting for other people to come on, thank you everyone for coming on. So Shavuos, the holiday, is coming up this weekend. Shabbos leads directly into Saturday night, Sunday, and Monday, the holiday. So I wanted to dedicate this class to talking a little bit about Shavuos, probably some ideas you know, and maybe some ideas you don't, and just reminding ourselves of what this holiday is all about. So Saturday night, we light the candles after nightfall, which in Chicago will be after 9 o'clock. And also Sunday night, we light the candles after nightfall, which will be after 9 o'clock. We light the candles Saturday night and Sunday night from a pre-existing flame because we're coming directly from the Sabbath, from Shabbos. So there's no interruption. So you cannot strike a match and light a new flame. It is in essence what we would call a 3-day holiday, even though that's really a misnomer. It's Shabbos, which flows into 2 days of the holiday. So you either want to, what some people do is before Shabbos, they'll light a Recite licht, a Recite candle, because that burns more than 24 hours. So they'll have a flame to light their first holiday candle and they'll light another Recite licht to light the second one, as well as the second night, the light for the Recite because it's Yisker. Or what might be simpler is some people just leave a little flame on, which you might use anyway to heat up your food or cook your food. And from that little flame, you'll light your candles Saturday night and Sunday night. It is one of the 3 holidays that are biblical as obligations of Jews to go to the temple to celebrate with God. We have Sukkot, Sukkot, Pesach, Passover, and Shavuot. And each holiday has its forte. Sukkot is joy. We're supposed to drink in joy for the entire year. Pesach, Passover, is liberation. We're supposed to take in that freedom for the whole year. And Shavuot is receiving God's Torah, his will, his wisdom, his law. So this time it's very straight what this holiday is about. We're renewing our commitment to Torah. It's actually written that during the 48 hours of the holiday, the evil inclination is not operative in terms of learning Torah. Meaning, maybe it'll tempt you to gossip. Maybe it'll try to get you to lie. Maybe you'll forget to say a blessing. But against Torah study, the evil inclination is dumb, mute, cannot fight you for the 48 hours of the holiday, just like we're told that during the entire Yom Kippur, the evil inclination cannot bring you to sin. The energy of the day is too intense. If you sin on Yom Kippur, it was just habit. There was no temptation. And similarly, on Rosh Hashanah, during the time of the blowing of the shofar, there's such intense godliness, the evil inclination can't do a thing. So similarly, on Shavuos, just in that one forte of Shavuos, Torah, if you don't learn, it's you. Your evil inclination is not bothering you. So it's really a time to use the time to really, really, really try to learn, to really, 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 really try to take it all in what God is giving us. Now, I said it's Shabbos, which then flows into this 2-day holiday. So actually, the Shabbos before Shavuos, we're supposed to do something that here you're very focused on, because Shavuos is literally Saturday night, which is reflecting on the classical words, the iconic statement that we, the Jewish people, made to God before we received the Torah the first time. And what we said to God was, I'll say it in the Hebrew, Na'aseh v'nishma, which means we will do And then we will listen. We will comprehend. That was the catalyst to receiving the Torah. That was the catalyst. When we said that, God said, yes, you guys are ready. Here it is. Here's me. I'm giving you me. I'm giving you my law. I'm giving you my will. I'm giving you my wisdom. I'm giving you me. What does this mean? Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and then we will listen. Well, that's a backward statement. First, you have to listen, hear, know what the person wants, and then you do. Imagine you said to your boss, I'm going to do, and then I'm going to listen to what you're telling me. Said to your husband, I'm going to do, then I'm going to hear what you wanted for supper. What does this mean? We'll do, and then we'll listen. What we're saying to God is, our space now is complete nullification to you. Just completely being open for your will to flow through me. We'll do whatever you want. And then we'll learn, we'll study, we'll get inspired, we'll understand, we'll ask questions, we'll get reasons. That's all afterwards. The preliminary space is we're doing. Whatever you want, we're doing. And afterwards, we'll try to make sense of it. And maybe some things will make sense and maybe some things won't. And that's okay too. Because it's not about our sense. It's about your will. We want to be pure conduits for your will. We will do. So we are told, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, that every year, because when Shavuos comes, we are literally getting the Torah again. Literally, we are getting the Torah. So just as then, and we are that same generation because we're a reincarnation of that generation. So this is exactly what we did before. And this is exactly what we need to do now. We need to look into ourselves and say, God, I'm yours. God, I'm here to do. I'm here to serve. I'm here that your will should flow through me. And then I'm going to listen. I'm going to learn. I'm going to try to understand. But I'm not going to let that be a barrier between your will and me. And that is something we're supposed to deeply think about before the holiday, on the Sabbath before the holiday, this week Shavuos. So when you come into the holiday, you're really in a space to receive what God's given you. Another famous, I don't know if you call it prerequisite, but something that happened that also was a catalyst to enable us to receive God's most precious thing, his Torah, his will, his wisdom, was the absolute unity the Jews had by the giving of the Torah. It's the only time in history. We did it once, but we did it. We're reincarnations of that generation. So if we did it once, that means we're capable of doing it. On Rosh Chodesh, which is tonight and tomorrow. It'll be dark soon, so it'll be tonight, a few minutes, tonight and tomorrow. When the Jews came to the Sinai desert, it says in the Hebrew, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar, which translates to mean, and he, Israel, camped there by the foot of the mountain. And the question is, we're talking about 3 million people. Why does it say in the singular? This is, you know, in Hebrew, like in many European languages, it's very, you know, specific in terms of singular, plural, masculine, feminine. And he camped, one person. There were 3 million of us. And our sages say, because we were like one man with one heart. There was such absolute unity of goal, of purpose. We were all in this together. We've all been counting day after day after day. We've already counted 44 days. We are so ready. We are so focused. We all just want one thing, to receive God's word, his law, his will, his wisdom, his Torah. And therefore, that's a very special way to receive the Torah, which God's giving us again Sunday, is really trying to create that unity. Maybe to think of someone that you'd like to make up with, that you like to reach out to, someone you haven't spoken to in 3 months or in 3 years, and say this would be a great time to create warm, loving feelings for both of us to really be able to receive the Torah with joy and inwardness. So those are 2 ideas before the holiday. 1, really thinking about this idea of accepting God's will. And 2, really trying to foster this unity and love between Jewish people, and leave a flame on or light a Yizkor candle to be able to light the candles properly. All right, on the holiday itself. Now, the holiday of Shavuos is far simpler than Passover, and also simpler than Sukkot. Sukkot, you need a sukkah to eat in, and you need the 4 kinds. And Shavuos is 2 days, not 8 or 9. So it seems much smaller, but of course in spirituality, they're all totally equal holidays. The number one thing I put on my list for the holiday, the most important thing to remember to do on the holiday is go to synagogue on Sunday to hear the 10 commandments. So even for people that unfortunately work on Monday, hopefully you have a synagogue that you could go to. Of course, ideally you wouldn't work on Monday, but it's Sunday. Go on Sunday to synagogue to hear the 10 commandments. Find the Chabad house nearest you, the synagogue nearest you, kosher Orthodox synagogue nearest you. Contact them in advance if you don't want to sit through the whole service. When is the Torah reading? And you could just come in for that. It'll take less than half an hour, leave after. You are now getting the Torah for a time 3,300 plus. And every single year, for I'm saying all these years, every single year, was 3,334. Every single year, God gives us the Torah from a deeper space than ever before, which means the Torah we are receiving on Sunday is the same Torah we've received for over 3,330 times, but this one is enhanced. This one is plus. Because each year it's enhanced. Each year it's plus a deeper level of God that he is now for the first time revealing to us. And we are told that literally we are supposed to be in synagogue. Now again, I don't want to say that if you're not in synagogue, you're not going to get the Torah. But when God's giving, it's nice for us to be present. And therefore it's very, very, very special for those of you that don't like going to synagogue, at least to be there on Sunday for the reading of the 10 commandments. And if you can't, then you are still, of course, able to focus on God and focus on the holiday and do everything you can from your home. But if you can, it's really beautiful. I was actually remembering on Shavuos, I was thinking this, how during COVID 2020, for the first time, we made outdoor synagogue in our yard, an outdoor minyan. And the first time we did it was for the holiday of Shavuos, because we know how important it is for every Jew to hear the 10 commandments. And of course, the synagogues are closed then, or maybe they were just opening for maybe a quorum. Obviously of men, no women were going. And I remember my son, Avremel, prepared. He has a very loud, strong voice. And he reads the Torah and he prepared it very well. And I remember him reading it very strongly and loudly. And we knew all these men and women came into our backyard, we're in our alley, we're in the building, in the porches of the buildings all around. And just all these Jews were hearing the 10 commandments. And it was so, so, so emotional. So I don't know if I'm going to have that same emotion this Sunday, but I should. But I definitely remember what it felt like then. So very, very, very important to go to synagogue on Sunday to receive God's gift of himself, of his will and wisdom, of the 10 commandments, of the Torah. The night before, men and some women traditionally stay up all night and learn, so to speak, to atone for the fact that when we originally got the Torah 3,334 years ago, the Jews didn't stay up all night in anticipation. Of course, there's spiritual reasons why they didn't. Obviously, they were totally wanting it and spent 49 days preparing, and we're like, so there's reasons why they didn't. But we, every year, stay up all night. You don't have to stay up all night, but it's nice if the night before, which is Saturday night, you learn extra as your way of saying to God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get your will and wisdom one more time from a deeper place than ever before. I'm so excited. Something else we do on the holiday that's unique to this holiday is that we eat dairy. traditionally by day, meaning Sunday after synagogue, we would have dairy. We would have dairy actually, then we wait about an hour because we wait between milk and meat an hour, and then we have a regular meat meal. Sometimes we also do it. Some of us have the custom to do it both days, Sunday and Monday. Have the dairy, then wait an hour, and then have a regular meat meal. Some people, of course, just have dairy, and some people have dairy all four meals. Why do we do dairy? Many reasons given, because it's sort of unusual, because traditionally all holidays are supposed to be meat. We're told we're supposed to celebrate with fish and meat, and that's very honorable, and that wine, and this shows how important the holiday is. So why on Shavuos, when the Torah is given, do we go for dairy? Many reasons given. One is because on Shavuos, an unusual offering that was offered on Shavuos were 2 loaves. It's actually one of the only times in the temple that they had real bread. When we speak about the bread offering, it was all forms of matzah. It was all not leavened, except on Shavuos, there was an offering of 2 loaves of real bread. So we're told to commemorate those 2 loaves, we have 2 meals, because we have a dairy, and then we wait, and then we have a meat. So we have 2 meals, like they have 2 loaves. Another reason very often quoted is that when the Torah was given, that is when they began keeping the laws of kosher. And the Torah was given on Shabbos, 3,334 years ago, given on Shabbos. So cattle couldn't be slaughtered, the utensils couldn't be made kosher, so they ate dairy. So they ate dairy, we ate dairy, we eat dairy. Torah is compared to nourishing milk, many other reasons why, specifically on the holiday of Shavuos. And again, we're not skimping on the meat, because, well, at least how we do it is we have 2 meals. We eat our dairy, then we wait, and then we eat our meat. So we have the meat, but we're having this special dairy. I always tell my children it's our party, because we're so excited. We got such a huge present from God, so we're celebrating. Because of course, for my kids, the dairy is a lot more fun than the meat meal. So that's a big party. So we're having a big party because God gave us a big, huge gift of himself. And we so appreciate it. We're having a party to celebrate. On the second day of the holiday, now again, it seems like 3 days, it's really 2 days. So we're talking here on Monday. Sunday is when we get the Torah. Sunday is where it's really important to go to synagogue. Sunday is when you want to hear the 10 Commandments being read, and that is when you receive the Torah one more time. And for sure, Sunday after synagogue is when you have your dairy meal, though some also do it Monday as well. On the second day of the holiday, which is Monday this year, is when we have the special Yizkor memorial prayer. If you don't go to synagogue, you can still recite this prayer. It's in a prayer book. If you don't have a prayer book, before the holiday, you could print it out from online. Don't go on your computer on the holiday to read it. God wouldn't want that. But before the holiday, on Friday or today, you can print it out from online. You can print it, I'm sure, in any language you want. So you can recite the prayer at home. Some people have this mistaken feeling that if you're not in synagogue, you can't recite it. That's not true. It's very important to recite the prayer most specifically for your parents. If, thank God, neither of your parents passed away, you're actually not allowed to recite the prayer. Even if other people in your life passed away, you can only recite the prayer if your parents passed away. If at least one of your parents passed away. But if you're in that situation, then you can not only recite for your parent or parents who passed away, you can recite for anyone you want. You can recite for a friend, you can recite for anyone you love that passed away, and especially if you know someone that you don't think anyone else is saying this prayer for, you would want to say the prayer, because the idea of the prayer is to help the soul of the departed who you love, and who you want them also to benefit from the holiday. So in a sense, we're turning to that departed and asking him or her to bring down blessings for us. But in another sense, it really is for the one that passed away, to give them an elevation for their soul. Just as our souls are elevated on the holiday, their soul should be elevated as well. It's actually very special because it's 3 days in a row, Shabbos and the 2 days of the holiday. So for 3 days, all the souls above have a special elevation. Like any negative places above are shut down. There's no Gehenna purgatory on Shabbos or the holidays. And the souls in whatever level of heavenly abode they're on, they ascend to a higher one on Shavuos and the holiday. So here they have 3 days of being in a very high, beautiful space. So it's a really, really good time for them. But as we say the memorial prayer, we are helping them even more ascend. After the holiday, it's important to give charity for each person you prayed for. So let's say you prayed for a parent that passed away and maybe 3 other people that you, maybe your grandparents or somebody that was close to you that you don't think anyone else is praying for and you want to help them. So for however many people you prayed for, you should give charity per person. Like you prayed for 5 people, whatever amount you're giving times 5 after the holiday. Don't do it on the holiday. God doesn't want you to give charity on the holiday, but Monday night after, 9 o'clock, you should give charity, or Tuesday, whatever's easier for you, give charity for each person that you prayed for on the Yizkor prayer. So again, if you go to synagogue, that's great. And it's, of course, very beautiful to do it in a synagogue. But if you're not going to synagogue Monday, it's still very, very, very appropriate to say the prayer and give this elevation to your parents and anyone else that you would like to. Some communities read the book of Ruth. Now, we studied that book. Hope everyone remembers that we spent quite a number of weeks literally reading every single verse. It's short, but we studied it very well. So some communities, it's not a Chabad custom, but there are many Jewish communities that read the book of Ruth on Shavuot. One reason given is because King David, Ruth's famous descendant, passed away on Shavuot. And another reason given is because Ruth, embodies the ultimate convert, as hopefully you all remember. From everything we've discussed about her, she was the ultimate convert. And in a sense, we all converted. When God gave us the Torah, that's when all the people, so to speak, became converts to become Jews. So since we all, in a sense, converted on Shavuos, that is why some people have the custom, some communities have the custom to read the book of Ruth on Shavuos. Actually mentioning the fact that King David passed away, something else that's very special, the Lubavitcher Rebbe every year on Shavuos would always ask to strengthen the study of Chitas. Chitas is a daily study portion in which we study a portion of Chumash. The Chumash is the Torah portion that we read on Shabbos in synagogue. Well, that Torah portion is divided into 7 sections. So every day of the week, Sunday through Saturday, there's another portion of the Torah that will be read on Shabbos. So we read those verses with the classical commentator of Rashi. Sunday's portion, Monday's portion, Tuesday's portion. We do that the whole week. Also, the book of Psalms has a number of different ways it's divided. Probably the most famous one is into 30 sections for the Jewish month, which has either 29 or 30 days. Really, every lunar month is 29 and a half days. And that's why some of our months are 29 and some of our months are 30. This month was 29, which probably means next month is going to be 30. So that division of taking the book of Psalms and dividing it into 30 portions, one per day of the month, in a month of 29 days on the 20, like this month, on the 29th to this morning or today, we read the portion of 29 and the portion of 30. On a month of 30, every day you read one portion. So in the Chitas, the Tehillim, the Psalm section, is reading that day's portion, whatever day of the month it is. And the third portion of Chitas is Tanya, the foundational work of Chabad Hasidism that we studied many years ago, which is divided for every day of the year. So when you're saying your Chitas, you do the Chumash portion as that Torah portion is divided for the week. You do your Tehillim portion as the book of Psalms, the book of Tehillim is divided for the month. And you do your Tanya portion as the Tanya is divided one section per day of the year. Now, why do we emphasize this on Shavuos? Because these 3 works, Chumash, Tehillim, and Tanya, all have a connection to the holiday of Shavuos. Chumash is Torah. Well, that's an obvious connection. God gave us the Torah on Shavuos. So that's why we want to, of course, emphasize Chumash on Shavuos. Tehillim was written by King David. And I just told you that King David passed away on Shavuos. So that's why his work, his iconic work, Psalms, Tehillim, has a special connection to Shavuos. And Tanya, which is the foundational work of Chabad Hasidus, but is really one of the foundational works, probably in the sense of all Hasidic works. And the founder of Hasidus, the Baal Shem Tov, also passed away on Shavuos. So Tanya, connecting to Hasidus, the Baal Shem Tov, who passed away on Shavuos. Psalms, Tehillim, connecting to King David, who passed away on Shavuos. And we know the day that a very holy person, we call it Tzaddik, passes away, like King David and the Baal Shem Tov, on the day of their passing, their energy is most intense. So that's why it's the best day to reconnect to King David through his Psalms. It's the best day to connect to the Baal Shem Tov through the Tanya on Shavuos. And God gave us the Torah, Chumash, on Shavuos. So that's why we also emphasize the study of Chitas and the recommitment or commitment to Chitas on Shavuos. For those that would be interested, if you go on chabad.org, chabad.org, you can find, they have like study guides, and it's all written there very nicely in English, every day's portion. So they make it very, very user-friendly on chabad.org. Going back to the customs of Shavuos, some have the custom to decorate their homes and their synagogues with flowers, with sweet-smelling plants before the holiday. On the holiday, they will be considered muksa, something we can't move and touch. But before the holiday, people have the custom to decorate their homes and synagogues with these flowers and plants. It's a very ancient custom. We see it referenced in many, many, many original sources. Many reasons are given for the custom, just like there's many reasons for the very ancient custom of eating dairy. So there's many reasons for this ancient custom as well. One is that God gave us the Torah in a desert. And yet, based on the verses, we see that the area of the giving of the Torah, Mount Sinai, that area was made fertile with its beautiful greenery. So just as God decorated and adorned the mountain and area that he gave the Torah, and even though he gave it to us in a desert, but he made it beautiful for the giving of the Torah, so we similarly make our homes and synagogues beautiful with flowers and greenery for us to receive his Torah. Of course, like every other holiday, like Rosh Hashanah, like Yom Kippur, like Passover, Pesach, like Sukkot, we have basically all the laws of Sabbath, except two things. We can cook from a, as I said before, pre-existing flame. So if you want to cook on the holiday, light your flame in advance, keep it burning on a very low flame the entire holiday. And we can carry if necessary. You can't just randomly carry, but if you have a need for something, like if you're going to synagogue and you need your reading glasses, so there's a need, or you're going to synagogue and you want to take tissues, or you're going to synagogue and you want to take your prayer book, or you're going to a friend and you want to bring her cookies, those are all need-based carrying. So you're allowed to carry on the holiday, which you're not allowed to do on the Sabbath. And you can cook, warm up food, cook food from a pre-existing flame. You can make the flame higher on the holiday, but you cannot make it lower. So if you make it higher, just remember it's gonna have to stay at that height the entire holiday. Some Shavuos thoughts. So that was all just the technical details to make sure we do this holiday properly. Some Shavuos thoughts. So as I said before, to me, the strongest thing to think about on Shavuos is that when God is giving us the Torah, he is sharing with us, as one of my students said once that really resonated in me, his diary. When he's giving us the Torah, he's giving us himself. The first of the 10 commandments is I am God, your God. Now the Hebrew word for I is ani. But in the 10 commandments, we don't use the word ani. We use a different word, which also means I. Anochi. A longer word, a more elaborate word to say I. Anochi. And our sages say that Anochi is actually an acrostic for it's 4 letters in Hebrew for 4 Aramaic words. Ana, Nafshi, Savis, Yahavis. you spelled out the word Anochi, which means in English, I put myself in the writings. So God is saying, if you want me, study Torah. Grasp me with your mind, and I will be within and one with you. The closest way we get to God is by learning His Torah. So if we really want God, we really want Torah. And the more Torah we learn and understand in our minds, the more God is literally in our minds. And something else very, very important to understand about Torah is that Torah is the only food of the soul. You can serve God all day long. Hopefully you do. You can do good deeds. You can do mitzvot. You can do His commandments. But your soul's still starving. Because none of that energy penetrates and feeds the soul. Surrounded by this godliness, but it's starving. None of it's getting in. The only godliness that actually gets in and feeds the soul is Torah. Torah has the energy to get inside the soul and nurture her energy. So Torah is the way I become one with God. It's the way God and I become one. It's the closest I am to God because He put Himself in the Torah. And it's the only food for my soul. So it's really, 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 really just the most amazing gift we have is to learn Torah. It's like such a gift that God gave us. Imagine you and God are one. Like that's unbelievable. That makes no sense. Like the Creator and you are one. How is that possible? But it is because God made it so. I learned Torah and I'm feeding my soul. Yeah. I learned Torah and I'm grasping God in my brain. Yeah. How? Because this is how God set Himself up. He squashed Himself into Torah, that He literally gives you Himself when He gives you the Torah. So imagine He put Himself in the Torah for you and you're like, I don't know if I really have time. There's nothing more amazing than immersing your mind in really the depth of Torah and being so awed by the brilliance of Torah. If you study a work, a classical work, a work of Baal Shem Tov, you're like so awed by the brilliance of these minds and the brilliance of God's Torah. So it's just like the most amazing immersion of your mind in God. We're actually told that the specifically Hasidic thought is the energy of Torah that will be used to revive the dead by the complete revelation of Mashiach. It says, by the revelation of Mashiach, the dead will be resurrected. And what will they be resurrected with? A special dew. And that dew, we're told, is a special level of Torah. That's the dew that revives the dead. And that dew is Hasidus. So imagine, as you're learning, if you're learning something from Hasidic thought, from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, or from one of the previous Rebbeim, you're drinking in the dew that revives the dead. This is a secret to our amazing energy, learning this special Torah of Hasidic thought. Now, this previous week's Torah portion, we just had 2 days ago, was Bechukosai. And Bechukosai says, if you go in my statutes, and then God writes all these amazing, amazing blessings we're going to receive. So Bechukosai seemingly is referring to a certain type of commandment, because there are 3 types of commandments, and one is called chukim, which means commandments that we don't know the reason for. So seemingly it's saying if you specifically invest yourself in these commandments that you don't even know the reason for. But then why would that be so special that for that reason uniquely God would give us all these blessings? So the sages explain that Bechukosai, that word for statutes, actually means something deeper. Bechukosai is from the root word here of chakika, which means engraving. So what we're being told here is there's a certain style of relationship. You can have 2 separate things, a Jew and Torah, and they're 2 separate things. Or you could have 2 things sort of joined together that became one, like a Sefer Torah, where you have parchment and special ink. So the parchment and ink are 2 separate things, but they become one in the Torah scroll. And then you have something that's hakika, something that's engraved, that's carved out, like the tablets of the Ten Commandments. Because when the letters are carved out from the stone, there's no existence of one besides the other. The letters are the stone is the letters. So what God is saying here is, you need to have a certain relationship with Torah. And I'm sharing this because we're about to get the Torah. And this is what God wants us to have with his Torah and the fulfillment of it, the commandments. He wants us to have a relationship like engraved letters. Us and the Torah are not two separate things. Us and the Torah are not even like ink to the parchment. Us and the Torah are like the letters of the Ten Commandments that are carved out, that the letters and the stone are innately, initially, completely one and can never be separated. You can't separate the letters from the stone. The stone are the letters are the stone. That's a Jew in Torah. That's what God wants from us. That's the relationship he wants. That's the relationship that allows all these blessings to flow when we and God's will and wisdom are absolutely one. Is there some part of your Judaism that feels that way? Is there some part that either innately or with work on your part, you feel this, that nothing can separate you from this aspect of serving God? Someone, as I've managed to monologue for like almost 50 minutes, so it'd be nice to hear someone else's voice. Some part of your Judaism that you can think of that, like that part, maybe not your whole Judaism, but that part of Torah or that part of serving God, you're one.
Hi, Sarah. For me, Shabbat is like, it's not a question, it's just engraved. Like, Shabbat is engraved in my life.
That's beautiful.
That's probably like one thing that comes to mind.
So Chava said something very appropriate. She said, it's not a question. That's what engraved means. Engraved means it's not a question. It doesn't make a difference what's going on in my world. This can never be severed from me. It's just me. So whatever happens, that piece of God's will and me can never be separated. So that's really beautiful how Chava connects to Shabbat that way. Someone else has a portion of serving God, a portion of studying God's Torah that they feel that about?
For me, it's lighting candles. And one more thing, it's a little bit private, when I go to mikvah.
So lighting the candles and mikvah are two aspects of serving God that just...
I feel, especially second one, I almost like immerse in his hug. Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's what it's supposed to feel like.
Mm-hmm.
A complete immersion, a complete embrace.
Yeah.
Complete body embrace. That's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. Anyone else like to share? Where they feel this engraved, this absolute oneness, unquestioning, cannot be separated oneness with them and some part of serving God? Okay, well, it's nice to think about if you didn't answer now, because I'm sure everyone has something that, like, yes, that is unquestioning. That cannot be taken away from me. And that's really how God wants us to relate to every part of serving him. But it's really beautiful when you have it in some way and you really get a taste of what it's supposed to feel like. Now, Torah was given on Mount Sinai, and as you might know, it's a very famous midrash that says that all the mountains came and they all proclaimed their virtues to God. And this mountain was the tallest and this mountain was the widest. And it says a little Har Sinai didn't say anything because she knew she was so much smaller than all the other mountains. She wasn't so tall. She wasn't so wide. She wasn't so special. Why should the Torah be given to her? And God said, you're the one. Why? Because you're so humble. You're so humble. That's where I want my Torah to be given, on the most humble mountain. And that's Sinai, because she's not so tall. She's not so wide. She's not so special. That's the place where my Torah is given. So the question is, so God, if you want humility and therefore you pick the smallest mountain, I mean, you could have given Torah in a valley also. Who's saying you have to give it in a mountain at all? Any mountain by definition implies an elevation of the land. We're told a mountain is like the vegetation of the inanimate because it's flowered, because it's risen. So even Sinai was higher than flat land, let alone higher than a valley. But God says, no, I need a mountain. I need to give Torah on a mountain because I need the strength. The mountain's like high, even Sinai was high. I need that strength to keep my Torah. You're going to need to be strong. We are. We've been really tough. 3,334 years of really sticking with God no matter what, as we were just saying. And our ancestors did that. If they didn't do that, you would not know you were Jewish today. You'd be Jewish, but you wouldn't know about it at all. They've been completely swallowed up. If you learn even a little bit of Jewish history, let alone if you learn more than a little of Jewish history, you see, wow, this miracle of our survival, which is of course the miracle of God, but our ancestors, we in our previous lifetimes, were really tough. We're really committed. So that's the idea of the mountain. We need that. But at the same time, God wants it to be a humble mountain. He wants us to be strong and he wants us to be humble. So if you're so strong, how can you be so humble? So we're told, well, the model for this is Moses, is Moshe. Moshe gave us the Torah. And Moshe was really strong. And Moshe, we're told, is the most humble man that ever lived. There's a verse in Torah, literally in the Bible, that says he was the most humble man. So how could he have been so humble if he gave us the Torah? And he took us out of Egypt. And he spent 120 days in heaven. And he did the 10 plagues. And he led the Jews 40 years in the desert. How could he have been so humble? Humble. How could he have been so humble? So we're told that he was the most nullified person that ever lived. Not that he was completely unaware of everything he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He knew through him came the 10 plagues and the Exodus and the Torah and 40 years in the desert. He knew that. But he knew none of this is me. All of this is God. Everything I'm doing is because God is flowing his energy through me. And you know what? Maybe if God did this to someone else, they would have done more. So he was so strong and so completely nullified. As Sinai is a mountain, strong, and the lowest mountain, the smallest mountain, the most nullified mountain. And that's the synergy that we need as well. And we're told that's another prerequisite. We spoke about the prerequisite of the acceptance we will do before we're going to find out what we're doing. And understanding the reasons, the whys, we're just committing, we're doing, we're nullifying. We spoke about the prerequisite of unity, of love, of extending ourselves to other people. Now this is a third prerequisite. To be that Mount Sinai, where the Torah was given, to be that Moses who gave us the Torah, which means to be like Mount Sinai and Moses, strong and completely nullified. Why do you think this is the prerequisite? Why do you think, there's a lot, I mean, obviously humility is a nice virtue, but why do you think this is the virtue God needed for the Torah to be given? That Moses had to be the most humble man ever to be the one that could give us the Torah. That Sinai had to be the most humble mountain to be the mountain Torah could give the Torah on. Why do you think God needed that virtue? Why is it a prerequisite that we have to look at ourselves and try to access the strength and the humility.
May I say my thought?
Mm-hmm.
So as one of the command, which is number one commandment, God is, I am your God. Just if we think about that. And then we also saying he God. So if we accept this as an axioma, this is it is God is one and this is a God. So I think it's logically think that whatever is done around us or whatever is done through us, everything what is done by us, it's only because of God. So that if somebody say, oh, why are you calling Moses so humble? Now you just explain. He was humble. The humbleness definition of it means, particularly with Moses or other person who accept God so strongly and feels no one else and not him, nobody else could do if God would not put his hand into. So Moses could not speak nicely. He was praying, God, show me how to speak through me, right? Something like that. So God gave him, or Moses was afraid to speak. Nobody will listen to me. And God made his words heard because God made these words. And I feel like sometimes, well, number of times, many times, I have no idea what to say to someone. And I'm just praying, God, just put words in my mouth.
I do that too.
And I do not know how it's no, I can't even share. I'm going to cry now, emotional. I want to share with somebody this feeling that sometime I'm in a situation that, wow, how did they handle it? How this happened? I'm not that smart, but those words just flew through me. And at that moment, I am in awe. I feel a full, complete in awe that I knew that if not God would go through me, I would not be able to handle that. And I think that's what means humbleness. And I think that's what God wanted. He wanted to make sure that people will see him as God, as number one, as only one. And that was a prerequisite. And everything else, he'll teach them. As soon as they take him as a number one foundation, and everything could be done with him, not without him. That's my thinking.
Okay, that's interesting. So what Miriam's saying is that humility is this, as I'm calling it, prerequisite, because the humility is this foundational acceptance of God. And she compared it to, like in the 10 Commandments, that the first commandment is, I'm God. Accept I'm God. Once you accept I'm God, everything else is going to flow. But I can't speak to you about Shavuos. I can't speak to you about kosher. I can't speak to you about family purity before we get the foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a very good answer, very good thought. And
I also, just one more thing want to add. When people who I meet, secular or on the middle of the road, they don't know what, like they're in search for spirituality, for God. I'm talking about Jewish people. And, why this, why that? I always say, don't tell me, just ask yourself a question. Do you accept that there is God, Hashem, and He's only one? And don't tell me, I'm not judged. Don't tell me. Just ask yourself and give an answer. As soon as you give answer yes, second answer you have to ask yourself, do you believe the Torah was given by God? If you answer yes, everything else will flow along. This is two prerequisites you have to. If you have yes, again, only to yourself, then you will be okay with keeping Shabbos, you'll be okay with Purim, you will be okay. Then every law which seems like very, very hard to do, and even I feel sometime on Shabbos, so many things I would just skip it. I want to do, but they said, no, I'm not doing it because I'm keeping Shabbos. Or I want something that is not supposed to be done by Torah. And the only thing which stops me from doing it, that I accepted long time ago, and I truly believe that those these 2 points, there is God and this is Hashem, and there is Torah which was given by God. So if I believe in those 2 things, how can I not go by the law? Yes, I would say, yeah, I'm breaking the law now. Not good, but I know there is a law. I'm just breaking it today. I'm not strong enough today. I just broke the law. But at least I give myself excuse, yes, I did something wrong, I have time to correct myself, but I know this law exists. I believe this law is true. That's all. So again,
I
those two
totally hear
prerequisites.
you, and I agree with you. I think that's very, very well put, and just these are the basics. Yeah, if you accept this, everything else is just the details. Absolutely right, and that goes back to this idea of humility, nullification to God, accepting His will, and then got to find it out. And sometimes we slip up, but we still have that foundational acceptance. We know this is the truth, and we just have to keep aligning ourselves and realigning ourselves to that truth. Thank you so much, Miriam. Someone else? Some other thoughts on why this is the introduction? Moses and the mountain Sinai, we need this humility. That's a prerequisite to getting the Torah. So maybe the silence is because everyone feels that Miriam answered it so well. She covered all bases, and she, what she said is so true. The humility definitely makes sense as like our nullification to God, our opening, like I was saying before about the we will do, and then we'll find out, the rationales, just that complete nullification and openness. And then with that perspective, we serve. The truth is, this is a lifelong journey. All of us, we're told, even souls after passing away are working on their nullification to God. And of course, it's hard because we're very egocentric people. There's definitely, I know I struggle with it. It's very hard. It's very hard because it's just endemic in us as people to have this ego, and we really have to understand how repulsive to God that is. And sometimes it helps, I find, just to think like, wow, I'm so undeserving of all that God gives me. And when I'm in that space of feeling truly blessed and truly undeserving of the blessings, that's a space of humility. Someone shared that the Lubavitcher said to him that he, like, if you think you're so good, so to speak, if God's examining you and also agrees you're so good, He's just going to need you to do more. So however good you are, however capable you are, however much you're doing, God's just going to demand more from you. So wherever you're holding, you can always be humbled by the awareness of how much God wants from you, needs from you, is looking at you, is demanding from you, is making Himself vulnerable to you. Because God really makes Himself vulnerable to us and really relies on us and really needs us. And that's a very humbling thought. And I find sometimes, like Miriam said, I very much resonated what Miriam said, understanding that when we're doing it right, it means God's working through us. And that's a very, very humbling thought also, just to think like, wow, God, you allowed yourself to work through me. I know where I am. So, and yet you're working through me. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable that you let your powers flow through me, like Miriam said, when she doesn't know what to say. And God gave her the words. I've definitely had that experience many, many times. And it's a very humbling experience to feel like, wow, God, you're just allowing your energy to flow through me. So it's always good to sort of think, how can we attain this? Because sometimes it's very hard for us. And yet, as we're seeing here, it's really, like we said about the prerequisite of we will do, and then we'll see what you want from us. And the prerequisite of love and unity, this humility, strength and humility is what God wants to be able to give us His Torah. So thank you so much for joining. Again, this is happening this week. There will be no class next week because it will be the holiday. So this week, to really prepare yourself, prepare your cheesecakes, prepare your blintzes, prepare yourself spiritually, to really be ready to receive God one more time from a deeper place than ever before. A great introduction to Mashiach. As we're told that when God originally gave us the Torah, it was like the engagement of God and the Jewish people. In ancient times, biblically, the engagement is separated from the wedding. You have the engagement, and then you have, the whole time when the bride puts her trousseau together and, readies herself to get married. It could be a year, it could be more. And then you have the marriage. So it seems we're engaged to a very schleppy guy here. It's been 3,334 years. But we're told that the engagement, which according to Torah law is the first step in the marriage, happened by the giving of the Torah. And the consummation of this, the marriage, is Mashiach. So as we receive the Torah one more time, as we're recommitting to our relationship with God one more time, that's definitely a very foundational step to the ultimate marriage between the Jewish people and God, which is Mashiach. So thank you so much for joining, and may we all have a receiving of the Torah with joy and with inwardness. Thank you so much. So again, no class next week. We're all going to be eating our cheesecake, going to synagogue for the 10 Commandments, praying that Yizkor prayer, and learning lots and lots and lots of Torah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank